I am Paige Ramsey, 34, and last weekend my rep as the family peacemaker? Yeah, it totally backfired. The safe haven I'd worked my butt off to build for my 5-year-old son, Leo, blew up into a full-on family meltdown at my father's 60th birthday dinner. My sister, Brooke, straight up demanded I let her discipline Leo her way, and when I clapped back, the room went dead silent. "You're tearing us apart, Paige," my mother Darlene yelled, with everyone, cousins, aunts, uncles, staring like I'd just set the table on fire. But here's the tea. Their shade didn't break me, it lit a spark. I'm not just pushing back, I'm about to flip the script and change everything. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, hit subscribe, and stay with me for the most gut-wrenching fight for my son you'll ever hear. Looking back, it's almost wild what I'd do once that belt hit Leo's skin. The dinner was at my parents' house in suburban Ohio, a beige split level that always smelled like potpourri and regret. I'd spent years shielding Leo from the kind of upbringing I had. My father, Vernon, with his quick hands and quicker temper, and Darlene, who'd just sigh and say, "That's how kids learn." Gentle parenting was my rebellion, my way of giving Leo a childhood where fear didn't live in his bones. That night, we were all crammed around the oak dining table, Vernon at the head like some king, Darlene fussing over her overcooked roast. Brooke, 36 and always itching for a fight, sat across from me, her husband, Lyle, next to her, sipping beer and nodding like a bobblehead. Leo was on my left, his little legs swinging, clutching his toy dinosaur. The tension started early. Brooke kept side-eyeing Leo, who was chattering about his T-Rex. "He's too loud, Paige," she snapped, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. I forced a smile, stroking Leo's hair. "He's fine, Brooke, just being a kid." Vernon grunted, muttering about spoiled brats, and Darlene shot me that look, like I was the problem for not controlling my son. I gripped my fork, knuckles whitening, trying to keep the peace. Leo, oblivious, reached for his juice, and that's when it happened. His elbow knocked the glass, purple liquid pooling on the tablecloth. Brooke's chair scraped back. "You little," she barked, and before I could blink, she'd yanked her belt off and swung it, the leather cracking against Leo's arm. He screamed, a sound that sliced through my heart, and I was on my feet, shoving myself between them. "What the hell, Brooke?" I yelled, scooping Leo into my arms. His sobs soaked my shirt, his tiny body trembling. The room froze. Lyle's beer mid-sip, Darlene's hands clutching her napkin, Vernon's face unreadable. Brooke just stood there, belt dangling, smirking like she'd won something. "Paige, calm down," Darlene said, voice tight. She was just correcting him. Correcting him? My vision blurred with rage. Vernon nodded. "Kids need discipline, not coddling." I clutched Leo tighter, his tears hot against my neck. "This is abuse," I spat, voice shaking. Brooke rolled her eyes. "You're so dramatic. He's fine." "Fine?" My son was sobbing, a red welt blooming on his arm. I looked around, waiting for someone, anyone, to back me up. Nothing. Just silence and stare. That's when I knew. This family wasn't safe. Not for Leo. Not for me. Leo's cries still echoed in my ears as I stood there, my arms wrapped around him, the dining room thick with tension. My family's faces, Darlene's pinched lips, Vernon's cold stare, Brooke's smug defiance, felt like a warped mirror of my childhood. Growing up in that house, I was the invisible one. The kid who learned to dodge fists and swallow hurt. My mind flashed back to being 10, sitting at that same oak table, my science fair ribbon clutched in my hand. I'd won first place, beaming as I showed it to Vernon. "Waste of time," he'd grunted, tossing it aside to praise Brooke's cheerleading trophy. Brooke, always louder, brasher, got the spotlight, her every move celebrated like she was curing cancer. Me? I was just Paige, the dreamer who needed to toughen up. Another memory hit, age 16, when I'd saved up for a parenting book, hiding it under my mattress like contraband. I'd read about gentle discipline, about raising kids with respect, not fear. It was my secret rebellion against Vernon's belt and Darlene's excuses. I tried sharing it with Darlene once, my voice shaky but hopeful. "Maybe we could try this with Brooke's tantrums?" Her laugh was sharp, like broken glass. "Don't be soft, Paige. Kids need a firm hand." Brooke, eavesdropping, had mocked me for weeks, calling me Saint Paige, while Vernon nodded along. My dreams of a different kind of family were buried, dismissed as weak. Even in my 20s, when I'd moved out and started teaching yoga, building a life around calm and connection, they never saw me. At family barbecues, Brooke's corporate job was the star, her bonuses, her corner office. I'd mention a workshop I led, how I helped moms find peace, and Darlene would change the subject. "Brooke's buying a new car," she'd say, as if my work was a hobby. Vernon would mutter about real jobs, and Lyle, Brooke's shadow, would chuckle. I'd bite my lip, forcing a smile, feeling like that 10-year-old with the ignored ribbon. Now, holding Leo, I saw it clearly. They'd never valued me because I didn't fit their mold. Gentle parenting wasn't just my choice for Leo, it was my defiance, my way of breaking their cycle. But standing in that dining room, with Brooke's belt still dangling and Leo's welt burning red, I felt the weight of their judgment. Darlene's hands fidgeted with her napkin, avoiding my eyes. "Paige, you're overreacting," she said, softer now, like she could smooth this over. Vernon leaned back, arms crossed. "She's right, you're making a scene." Brooke smirked, looping the belt back on as if she'd done nothing wrong. I pressed my cheek to Leo's hair, his sobs quieter but his body still trembling. My heart pounded, torn between the urge to scream and the need to protect him. I scanned the faces, Lyle's blank stare, my cousin's averted gazes, my aunt's nervous sip of wine. No one spoke up. No one saw Leo's pain or mine. It was my childhood all over again, but this time it wasn't just me they were erasing, it was my son. I tightened my grip on him, his dinosaur toy digging into my side. I'd spent years trying to prove I wasn't weak, but their silence screamed louder than any belt. This wasn't just a dinner gone wrong. It was the end of pretending we were a family. Leo's trembling had eased, but his small hand clung to my shirt as I stood frozen in my parents' dining room, the sting of Brooke's belt still fresh in the air. My family's dismissal, Darlene's fidgeting, Vernon's scowl, Brooke's smirk, pushed me back to the moment I found my strength, the secret I'd built in silence. 3 years ago, when Leo was just 2, I'd hit a breaking point. I was scraping by as a yoga instructor, living in a cramped Ohio apartment, determined to raise Leo differently from how I was raised, but every tantrum, every sleepless night tested me. I'd grown up with Vernon's shouts and slaps, and part of me feared I'd slip into that pattern. That's when I discovered gentle parenting. Not as a buzzword, but as a lifeline. I'd stumbled across a blog by a mom named Tanya, who wrote about responding to kids with empathy, not punishment. It was like a light bulb flickered on. I spent nights devouring books, podcasts, anything I could find, scribbling notes while Leo slept. I joined online forums asking questions, feeling like a fraud at first. How do you stay calm when they scream? I'd type, exhausted. Other moms shared tips: breathe deeply, name the emotion, redirect. I practiced with Leo, kneeling to his level when he'd fling toys, saying, "I see you're mad, buddy. Let's find a safe way to feel it." It was grueling, like rewiring my brain. Some days I'd cry in the bathroom, terrified I was failing him. But it worked. Leo started trusting me, his meltdowns shrinking, his giggles filling our tiny home. I got certified as a parenting coach, pouring my savings into it, keeping it secret from my family. They'd mock anything soft, so I didn't tell them when I started leading workshops, helping other moms break their own cycles. By last year I'd built a small online following, my inbox full of messages. "You saved my relationship with my kid." It was my victory, hard-won and hidden, proof I wasn't the weak Paige they saw. Now, in that dining room, with Leo's welt glaring under the chandelier's light, that victory felt like armor. Brooke's belt wasn't just an attack on Leo. It was an attack on everything I'd built. Darlene's voice cut through my thoughts. "Paige, sit down. You're upsetting everyone." Her eyes darted to the spilled juice like it justified Brooke's swing. Vernon nodded, his fork clinking against his plate. "She's got a point. Kids need to learn." Brooke leaned back, arms crossed, her belt now back on her jeans, like nothing happened. I shifted Leo in my arms, his dinosaur toy pressed against my chest. My workshops flashed through my mind, moms thanking me for teaching them to pause, to choose love over anger. I'd done it for Leo, for myself, and now my family was trying to tear it down. "No," I said, my voice low but steady. "This isn't discipline, it's abuse." Darlene flinched, Lyle looked at his beer and Brooke scoffed, but I saw Vernon's jaw tighten. I wasn't just defying Brooke, I was defying their whole way of life. Leo's quiet sniffles anchored me. My secret wasn't just gentle parenting, it was the strength to stand here, knowing I was right, even if they'd never see it. But what came next would test every ounce of that strength. Leo's sniffles had softened, but his grip on my shirt stayed tight as I stood in my parents' dining room, the weight of Brooke's assault and my family's silence pressing down. My mind churned, dreading what was coming. The rest of this cursed birthday dinner for Vernon. It was Saturday evening and I'd spent all week bracing for it. My gentle parenting work, my workshops, my growing community was on the cusp of something big. I'd just been invited to speak at a national parenting conference, a chance to share my message with thousands. But I hadn't told my family. They'd scoff, call it hippie nonsense, and I couldn't face that tonight. Not when I was already fighting to keep Leo safe. I'd almost skipped the dinner. My apartment was my sanctuary, Leo's crayons scattered on the coffee table, his dinosaur posters on the walls. But Darlene had called 3 times, her voice syrupy with guilt trips. "It's your father's 60th, Paige. You can't miss it." I'd caved, picturing Leo's smile as he gave Vernon the card he'd drawn, a wobbly cake with 60 candles. Now, with Leo trembling in my arms, that card lay crumpled on the table, soaked in juice. I wished I'd stayed home. The dining room felt like a trap. Brooke sat back down, smirking, her belt looped through her jeans like a trophy. Darlene fussed with the roast, avoiding my eyes, while Vernon carved another slice, his knife scraping the platter. Lyle sipped his beer, muttering to my cousin Wade about kids these days. My aunt, Thelma, dabbed her napkin at nothing, and the rest, cousins, uncles, kept their heads down, forks clinking. I wanted to scream, but Leo's weight in my arms kept me grounded. I whispered, "You're okay, buddy," kissing his forehead though my heart raced. I set Leo in his chair, kneeling to wipe his tears. His welt glowed red and my stomach twisted. "Mommy, it hurts," he whimpered, clutching his dinosaur. I forced a calm smile, the kind I used in my workshops. "I know, sweet boy, I'm here." But inside I was unraveling. Brooke's voice cut through. "Paige, stop babying him, he needs to learn." Vernon grunted agreement, and Darlene sighed. "Let's just eat." Eat? After my son was hit, I stood, hands shaking, and met Brooke's eyes. "You don't touch my son, ever." The room stilled again. Vernon's fork paused midair. Darlene's hands froze on her napkin. Brooke leaned forward, voice low. "You're so high and mighty, Paige. He's spoiled because of you." Spoiled? Leo, who said please and hugged strangers' dogs? I bit back a retort, knowing they'd twist it. My conference invite flashed in my mind, a chance to prove my work mattered. But right now, all that mattered was Leo. I sat beside him, my hand on his back, his small breaths steadying me. I glanced at the clock, 7:45 p.m. 2 more hours of this. I could leave, but Darlene's inevitable calls, Vernon's lectures would follow. Staying felt like surrender, but going might spark worse. Leo nibbled his roll, eyes on his plate. I had to protect him, no matter what came next. My workshops taught me to pause, to choose love. But love meant standing up, and I wasn't sure I was ready for the storm that would follow. Leo's small hand rested on my knee as we sat at the dining table, his dinosaur toy clutched tight, the welt on his arm a stark reminder of Brooke's belt. The room had settled into an uneasy quiet, forks scraping plates, but the air crackled with judgment. I kept my eyes on Leo, stroking his hair, trying to shield him from the hostility swirling around us. Vernon's 60th birthday dinner was supposed to be a celebration, but it felt like a gauntlet, and I was the target. Brooke's smirk hadn't faded, and every glance from my family, Darlene's sighs, Vernon's grunts, hit like a jab. Darlene broke the silence, her voice falsely bright. "Paige, you haven't touched the roast, it's Vernon's favorite." She pushed the platter toward me, her smile tight. I nodded, not taking the bait, and cut a small piece for Leo, who nibbled it slowly. Brooke leaned forward, her tone dripping with condescension. "Still doing that yoga thing, Paige? Must be nice, playing pretend all day." Lyle chuckled, and my cousin Wade joined in, muttering, "Yeah, real cushy." I clenched my fork, my knuckles white. My yoga and parenting coaching weren't play, they were my lifeline, my way of building a safe world for Leo. But to them, it was a joke. Vernon cleared his throat, his gravelly voice cutting through. "When you getting a real job, Paige? Something with benefits like Brooke." He nodded at her, pride in his eyes. Brooke preened, tossing her hair. "I just closed a big deal at work," she bragged. 6 figures this quarter." Darlene beamed. "That's our girl." I swallowed hard, the old sting of being invisible flaring up. My workshops, my conference invite, they'd never care. To them, I was the soft one, the failure. Thelma, my aunt, chimed in, her voice syrupy. Paige, you're so good with Leo, but don't you think he needs structure? She glanced at Brooke, who nodded. Exactly. Kids need discipline, not hugs all the time. Discipline. The word made my stomach churn, conjuring Vernon's belt from my childhood. I looked at Leo, his eyes down, sensing the tension. He's got structure, I said, voice steady but sharp. He doesn't need to be hit. Brooke scoffed, rolling her eyes. Here we go. St. Paige again. Darlene's napkin twisted in her hands. Paige, we're just saying, you're young. You don't know everything. Young? I was 34, raising Leo alone, breaking a cycle they'd never questioned. Vernon leaned back, arms crossed. You're too soft, always were. The words landed like a slap, and I felt Leo shift closer, his small body warm against mine. My heart pounded, torn between defending myself and protecting him from this venom. I wanted to scream about my successes, my coaching, my community, but their dismissal would only hurt more. Wade piped up, smirking. Bet Leo runs the house, huh? Laughter rippled around the table and I saw red. I pressed my hand to Leo's back, grounding myself. He's kind and happy, I said, staring Wade down. That's what matters. The laughter faded, but Brooke's eyes narrowed like she was gearing up for round 2. The roast sat untouched on my plate, my appetite gone. This wasn't just a dinner, it was a test, and I was barely holding on. Leo's warmth against my side kept me anchored as the dining room's hostility thickened, the clink of forks now drowned by Brooke's sharp laugh at my defense of him. The air felt suffocating, my family's jabs, Vernon's too soft verdict, Darlene's twisted napkin, Wade's smirk, still stinging. I was bracing for another round of their contempt when Leo, reaching for his dinosaur, nudged his plate. A single green bean rolled off, landing on the tablecloth. Before I could react, Brooke's chair screeched back. Enough, she snapped, her voice slicing the room. She ripped her belt off again, the leather snapping as she raised it. Time slowed, Leo's wide eyes, Darlene's gasp, Vernon's nod of approval. The belt came down, cracking against Leo's shoulder. His scream shattered me. I lunged, pulling him into my arms, his sobs soaking my blouse. Brooke! Stop! I yelled, my voice raw, shaking. The welt on his shoulder bloomed red, matching the one on his arm. He clung to me, his dinosaur falling to the floor. Brooke stood, belt in hand, chest heaving. He needs to learn respect, she spat. Respect? My vision blurred with rage, my heart pounding so hard I thought it'd burst. I cradled Leo, whispering, You're safe, buddy. Though I barely believed it. Darlene's voice wavered. Paige, she didn't mean it, he's fine. Fine? Vernon leaned forward, his tone cold. She's right, you're raising a brat. My Aunt Thelma nodded, murmuring, Discipline's necessary. Lyle sipped his beer, avoiding my eyes, while Wade and the cousins stared at their plates. Brooke looped her belt back on, smirking. You're too weak to parent, Paige. Weak? I'd spent years building a life where Leo felt safe and they were defending this. I stood, Leo in my arms, his tears hot against my neck. This isn't discipline, I said, voice trembling but firm. It's abuse. The word hung heavy, silencing the room. Darlene flinched, her napkin dropping. Vernon's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Brooke rolled her eyes. Drama queen, he'll survive. Survive? Like I'd survived their upbringing, carrying scars they'd never acknowledge. I looked around. No one met my gaze. Not Lyle, not Thelma, not even my cousin Marla, who'd always been kind. Their silence was louder than Brooke's belt. Leo's small hand gripped my sleeve, his sniffles softening. I kissed his forehead, my mind racing. This wasn't just about tonight. It was about every time they'd dismissed me, every time they'd justified pain as love. My workshops, my conference invite, my whole fight for gentle parenting felt like a shield now, but it wasn't enough. Leo's welts were real, his fear was real, and I couldn't let this slide. You don't get to hurt my son, I said, staring at Brooke, then Vernon. Not ever. Darlene reached out, her voice pleading. Paige, let's talk this out. We're family. Family? The word tasted bitter. I shifted Leo's weight, his dinosaur toy still on the floor, abandoned. Brooke's smirk didn't waver and Vernon's silence screamed approval. I realized then, they'd never change. They'd defend Brooke, defend the belt, defend the cycle I'd spent my life breaking. My hands shook, not with fear, but with a clarity I'd never felt before. This dinner wasn't just a test. It was the end. Leo's soft whimpers vibrated against my chest as I held him, the dining room's silence deafening after my accusation of abuse. Brooke's smirk, Vernon's cold nod, Darlene's dropped napkin, they all blurred as I stood, my son's welts burning into my resolve. I couldn't stay in this house. This trap of excuses and violence. My heart hammered, but my mind was clear. I had to protect Leo, no matter the cost. I grabbed his dinosaur toy from the floor, tucking it into his trembling hands, and whispered, "We're okay, buddy." But we weren't. Not yet. I needed to act, and fast. I stepped back from the table, ignoring Darlene's pleading eyes. "Paige, don't make this worse," she said, voice cracking. "Worse?" Brooke scoffed, crossing her arms. "Go cry somewhere else, Paige." Vernon just watched, his silence a heavier blow than any belt. I shifted Leo's weight, my purse slung over my shoulder, and headed for the door. The room's stairs followed. Lyle's blank face, Thelma's nervous fidgeting, Wade's smirk, but I didn't care. My phone felt heavy in my pocket, a lifeline I hadn't planned to use. Outside, the cool Ohio night hit my face, Leo's sobs quieter now. I set him in his car seat, buckling him gently, his welted shoulder making me wince. "Mommy's got you," I said, kissing his forehead. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone, the screen glowing in the dark. I dialed 911, my voice steady despite the knot in my throat. "I need to report an assault," I said when the operator answered. "My sister hit my 5-year-old son with a belt. Twice." I gave the address, described the welts, and hung up, my breath ragged. Leo watched me, clutching his dinosaur, eyes wide but trusting. Back inside, I'd left chaos brewing, but out here it was just us. I sat in the driver's seat, gripping the wheel, waiting for the police. My family would lose it. Darlene's tears, Vernon's rage, Brooke's denial. But I didn't care. This wasn't about them anymore. It was about Leo, about the life I'd promised him, free from fear. My workshops taught me to pause, to choose love, but love meant justice, too. Reporting Brooke was agonizing, like cutting a piece of myself away, but it was right. Those welts weren't discipline. They were a line crossed, one I wouldn't forgive. Headlights flashed in the distance, a police car. My stomach twisted, but I straightened, glancing at Leo in the rearview mirror. "We're doing the right thing," I told him, more for myself. The officer, a woman with a calm voice, approached, notepad in hand. I showed her Leo's welts, my voice breaking as I recounted Brooke's swings. She nodded, taking photos, left her face unreadable but kind. "We'll need to talk to everyone inside," she said. I nodded, knowing the storm waiting in that house. As she walked toward the door, Leo's small voice piped up. "Mommy, are they mad at me?" My heart cracked. I turned, stroking his cheek. "No, buddy, you didn't do anything wrong." His trust steadied me, but the weight of what I'd just done, reporting my own sister, defying my family, settled like a stone. The police would handle Brooke, but the real fight was just beginning. I'd crossed a line too, and there was no going back. The police officer's flashlight bobbed as she headed toward my parents' house, leaving me in the car with Leo, his small hand clutching his dinosaur toy. His welts glowed faintly under the streetlight, and my chest ached with the choice I'd just made. Reporting Brooke. The night air was cool, but my hands sweated on the steering wheel, the reality of what came next sinking in. I'd called the cops on my sister, and my family's silence during her assault on Leo told me everything. They'd choose her over us. I glanced at Leo in the rearview mirror, his eyes heavy but trusting. "We're gonna be okay," I whispered, more to myself. The front door swung open, and Darlene's voice carried, shrill and panicked. "Paige, what have you done?" She stormed toward the car, Vernon looming behind her, Brooke at his side, her face twisted with rage. The officer blocked their path, speaking calmly, but I caught Brooke's shout, "She's lying!" I barely touched him. Barely. My blood boiled. I stepped out, keeping the car door between us, Leo safely inside. "You hit my son with a belt, Brooke," I said, voice low but cutting. "Twice. I saw it, we all did." Darlene's hands wrung together, tears streaking her mascara. "Paige, this is family, you don't call the police on family." Vernon's jaw clenched, his silence louder than her pleas. Brooke stepped forward, pointing. "You're pathetic, Paige, always playing the victim." The officer raised a hand, asking for statements, but I kept my eyes on Brooke. "You don't get to hurt Leo and call it love," I said. "You're just like Dad." The words hit like a slap. Vernon flinched, and Darlene gasped, but Brooke's smirk faltered. I turned to the officer, recounting every detail. The spilled juice, the first swing, the second, the room's silence. My voice shook, but didn't break. Darlene interrupted, "She's exaggerating." But the officer's steady gaze kept me going. Brooke's denials grew louder, Lyle now at her side, muttering about misunderstandings. The the cousins and Thelma hovered in the doorway, watching like it was a reality show. I saw their hypocrisy clear as day. They'd excused Vernon's belt when I was a kid, and now they'd excuse Brooke's. No more. I'm done, I said, not just to Brooke but to all of them. You don't get to decide what's okay for my son. I looked at Darlene, her tears useless now. You let this happen, all of you. Vernon's eyes narrowed, but he stayed silent, his approval of Brooke's actions screaming through his crossed arms. I turned to the officer. I want to press charges. Darlene sobbed, Brooke cursed, but I felt a strange calm. My workshops, my fight for gentle parenting, it wasn't just for Leo, it was for me to break this cycle. I got back in the car, Leo's soft breathing steadying me. The officer promised to follow up, handing me a card. As I drove away, the house shrank in the rear view, Darlene's cries fading. I'd exposed their hypocrisy and walked away, but the weight of estrangement settled heavy. Leo's hand reached for mine from the back seat. Love you, Mommy, he mumbled. I squeezed his fingers, tears blurring the road. This was my exit, and I'd never felt stronger or more alone. Leo's quiet, "Love you, Mommy," lingered in the car as I drove away from my parents' house, the police officer's card tucked in my purse, and the weight of my decision, cutting off my family, settling like a stone in my chest. It was past 9 p.m., and the Ohio streets were dark, streetlights casting long shadows. Leo dozed in his car seat, his dinosaur toy slumped against his chest, the welts on his arm and shoulder hidden, but not forgotten. My hands gripped the wheel, my mind replaying Brooke's smirk, Darlene's tears, Vernon's silence. I'd walked away, but the ache of losing them, even a toxic family, gnawed at me. I needed someone to remind me I wasn't alone. I pulled into the driveway of my friend Marcy's house, a small bungalow with fairy lights strung along the porch. Marcy, 38, was my chosen family, a fellow parenting coach I'd met at a workshop 2 years ago. Her laugh, her no-nonsense warmth, had pulled me through countless doubts. I texted her from the car. "Bad night, can we come in?" Her reply was instant. "Doors open." I carried a sleepy Leo inside, his head lolling against my shoulder. Marcy met us in the living room, her curly hair tied back, her eyes softening when she saw my face. "Paige, what happened?" she asked, guiding us to the couch. I set Leo down, his dinosaur tucked under his arm, and the story spilled out. Brooke's belt, the dinner's hostility, the police. Marcy listened, her hand on mine, not interrupting, just nodding. When I finished, she hugged me, her embrace fierce. "You did the right thing," she said, voice firm. "Leo's lucky to have you." Her words cracked something open, and tears I'd held back all night fell. She handed me a tissue, then grabbed a blanket for Leo, who stirred but didn't wake. Marcy's partner Glenn brought us tea, his quiet kindness a stark contrast to Lyle's spineless silence at the dinner. Their friend Tanya, the blogger who'd inspired my gentle parenting journey, was there too, visiting from Cleveland. She knelt by Leo, brushing his hair gently. "He's safe now, Paige," she said. "You broke the cycle." Their support, Marcy's hug, Glenn's tea, Tanya's words, felt like a lifeline, so different from the dining room's cold judgment. We sat around Marcy's coffee table, fairy lights glowing, and talked. Tanya shared her own story of cutting off her abusive brother. Marcy admitted she hadn't spoken to her dad in years. "Chosen family's stronger," Glenn said, squeezing Marcy's hand. Leo murmured in his sleep, and I stroked his cheek, his welts less angry now but still there. This room, these people were what family should be, love without conditions, support without shame. Marcy poured more tea, her eyes fierce. "You're not alone, Paige. We've got you." I nodded, the knot in my chest loosening. My biological family had defended Brooke's violence, but here I was seen, valued. The contrast hit hard, the dinner's venom versus this warmth. I thought of my conference invite, my workshops, my fight for Leo. This was my real home, not that house of excuses. As I sipped my tea, Leo's soft snores grounding me, I felt a flicker of hope. I'd lost one family, but I'd found another, one that chose me back. Leo's soft snores filled Marcy's living room as I sat on her couch, the warmth of her fairy lights and Tanya's kind words still wrapping around me like a blanket. It was late, past 10 p.m., and Glenn had carried Leo to their guest room, tucking him in with his dinosaur toy. My phone buzzed, Darlene's name flashing, then Vernon's, then Brooke's. I silenced it, my hands steady but my heart racing. The police report I'd filed against Brooke was a line I couldn't uncross, and the fallout was coming. I sipped the last of my tea, Marcy's fierce, "We've got you," echoing in my mind. But I knew I had to face the aftermath alone, legally, emotionally, and for Leo. The next morning, sunlight streamed through Marcy's kitchen as I called the police station, Leo eating pancakes at the table, his welts fading but still visible. The officer from last night, Sergeant Willis, answered. "We've taken statements," she said, voice calm. "Brooke denies intent, but we've got enough to move forward with child endangerment charges." My stomach twisted, relief mixed with dread. She explained the process. A social worker would visit, I'd need to document Leo's injuries, and there'd be a hearing. "It's not quick," she warned. I nodded, though she couldn't see, glancing at Leo, who giggled as Marcy drizzled syrup. "Whatever it takes," I said. Back home that afternoon, I sat at my desk, Leo napping nearby. My laptop glowed with emails about my parenting conference invite, but I pushed them aside to draft a statement for the social worker. My hands shook as I typed about Brooke's belt, the dinner's silence, my family's defense. I photographed Leo's welts, each click feeling like a betrayal of the family I'd once loved. Darlene's voicemails piled up. "Paige, this is tearing us apart," but I deleted them. Vernon's text was blunt. "You're no daughter of mine." Brooke's was venomous. "You'll regret this." I blocked their numbers, my chest tight but resolute. Marcy stopped by, bringing coffee and a lawyer's card. "She's good with family cases," she said, sitting across from me. I nodded, grateful but overwhelmed. The lawyer, Nora, met me later that week, her office small but warm. "You're doing the right thing," she said, echoing Marcy. She outlined restraining orders, custody protections, and how to keep Leo safe. "Your family might push back hard," she warned. I thought of Vernon's temper, Darlene's guilt trips. "Let them," I said, surprising myself with my steel. I set new rules: no contact with my family, no exceptions. I told Leo's preschool about the situation, not ensuring Brooke couldn't pick him up. At home, I locked my social media, knowing Brooke's spite. Each step felt like building a fortress, brick by brick, to shield Leo. That night I tucked him into bed, his dinosaur under his arm. "Mommy, are they still mad?" he asked, eyes big. I kissed his forehead. "They're far away, buddy. You're safe." He smiled, trusting me, and I vowed to keep that trust. The legal road loomed. Hearings, statements, maybe court, but I felt a quiet strength. My workshops taught me to pause, to choose love, and love meant boundaries. Marcy, Tanya, Glenn, they were my anchors now. As Leo slept, I looked at the conference invite on my desk. This fight wasn't just for Leo, it was for me, for the life I was claiming, free from their shadows. Leo's steady breathing filled our apartment as I sat by his bed, the glow of his dinosaur nightlight casting soft shadows. It was a week after the police report, and the legal gears were grinding. Nora, my lawyer, had filed for a restraining order against Brooke, and the social worker's visit was scheduled. My phone stayed silent, my family's numbers blocked, but their absence left a hollow ache. I'd spent years breaking their cycle of violence, building a life where Leo could thrive, and now I was ready to take it further. My parenting conference invite sat on my desk, a beacon of what I could do with my strength. I wasn't just protecting Leo, I was reclaiming my name, my legacy on my own terms. That morning, I'd woken with a fire in my chest. I opened my laptop and started planning my conference talk, typing furiously while Leo colored nearby. My workshops had helped dozens of moms, but this was bigger, a chance to share gentle parenting with thousands. I titled it, "Breaking Cycles, Building Trust," pouring my story into it. My childhood under Vernon's belt, my fight to raise Leo with love, the dinner that shattered my family. I wrote about Brooke's assault, not for pity, but to show what's at stake. "We choose how to parent," I typed, "not our past, not our pain." My fingers paused, tears blurring the screen. This was my impact, my way of turning scars into something good. Later I called Marcy, who'd become my rock. "You're gonna kill it at that conference," she said, her voice bright over the phone. I laughed, the first real laugh in days. "I hope so. I want Leo to see me shine." She offered to watch him during my trip, and I felt a rush of gratitude. My chosen family, Marcy, Glenn, Tanya, wasn't just support, they were proof I didn't need Vernon's approval or Darlene's tears. I hung up, glancing at Leo, who was drawing a T-Rex. "That's awesome, buddy," I said, kissing his head. His smile was everything. By afternoon, I reached out to my online community, posting a short video. "I'm speaking at a conference," I said, voice steady. It's about raising kids with love, not fear. Comments flooded in. You're an inspiration, Paige. Can't wait to hear you. I read them to Leo, who giggled. Mommy's famous. My heart swelled. This wasn't about fame, it was about showing Leo what strength looked like, about rewriting the Ramsey name. Vernon and Brooke could keep their version of family. I was building a new one rooted in respect. That evening I took Leo to the park, pushing him on the swing as he squealed. A mom nearby, Karen, recognized me from a workshop. Your class has changed how I parent, she said, her toddler tugging her hand. I smiled, thanking her, but inside I felt a shift. My work wasn't just personal, it was a ripple, touching lives I'd never meet. As Leo ran to the slide, I thought of the conference, the restraining order, the life I was carving. I wasn't just surviving, I was creating. The Ramsey name wouldn't mean fear anymore. It would mean hope, love, a mother who fought for her son and won. I pushed Leo higher, his laughter echoing, and for the first time I felt free. Leo's laughter from the park swing still rang in my ears as I sat on our couch that night, his dinosaur nightlight casting a soft glow across the apartment. It was 2 weeks after the dinner, and the legal storm, Brooke's charges, the restraining order, was moving forward, but I felt a quiet calm. My conference talk was nearly ready, my chosen family had my back, and Leo's welts were fading, his trust in me unshaken. I looked at the photo on my phone, Leo at the park, grinning on the slide, free. That's when it hit me. A realization as clear as the Ohio sky that day. I didn't need my family's approval, or anyone's, to know my worth. Peace wasn't in their apologies, it was in me, in the life I'd built for Leo. I leaned back, my laptop open to my conference script, but my mind wandered. I'd spent years chasing Darlene's pride, Vernon's nod, Brooke's respect, thinking their love would fill the hole they'd carved in me. But their silence at that dinner, their defense of Brooke's belt, showed me the truth. Their love came with strings, with pain. I'd broken that cycle for Leo, but also for myself. Every workshop I led, every mom I helped, every hug I gave Leo, it was proof I was enough. I didn't need to prove it to them anymore. I got up, walking to Leo's room. He slept soundly, his dinosaur toy tucked under his arm. I brushed his hair, my heart full. You're my why, I whispered. My childhood had been fear, but his was love, and that was my victory. Back on the couch, I thought of Marcy's hug, Tanya's words, the moms in my workshops. They saw me, Paige Ramsey, not the soft daughter or the dramatic sister, but a woman who turned pain into purpose. That was my peace, knowing I'd chosen my path and walked it with courage. I glanced at my conference invite, the date a month away. I'd speak to thousands, share my story, and show Leo what it means to stand tall. The Ramsey name wasn't Vernon's anymore. It was mine, redefined by love, not fear. I closed my laptop, the room quiet except for Leo's soft snores. For the first time I didn't feel the weight of my family's judgment. I felt free, whole, validated by the life I'd created. Peace wasn't a destination, it was this moment, knowing I was enough. Have you ever had to walk away from someone to protect your peace? I'm Paige, and sharing this story, Leo's welts, Brooke's belt, my family's betrayal, hasn't been easy, but it's shown me that real strength comes from within. I'd love to hear your stories, drop them in the comments. What's a moment you chose yourself, or someone you love over toxic ties? If my journey resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it's okay to define family on their own terms. You're not alone in this fight. Keep choosing love. Keep choosing you. It's the most powerful thing you can do.